So the first thing I do with making any project with polymer clay is I have to condition the clay. So it has to be soft in order to be able to work with it. I have to have a clean surface. I rub everything off with rubbing alcohol. But you need to condition the clay first because it's pretty hard. You can't do anything with it when it's solid like that. So I start out with rolling it out quite a bit till I can get it thin enough to run through my pasta machine. And then I run it through my pasta machine many times to get it nice and pliable, get all the air bubbles out. You can see me kind of cutting into the clay because there were some air bubbles, and that's one way to get them out. So once I get it to a good spot where it's thin enough to run through the pasta machine, I start running it through over and over again, folding it over, putting it back through many times until I feel that it's a soft enough clay to work with. And then usually my last pass through the pasta machine is just to get the thickness I want. So here you can see I'm running it through on the thickest setting just to condition it, but then I will turn down the knob to the thickness that I want my earrings to be. So now the clay is all conditioned and ready to be worked with. And I'm going to lay down a piece of paper because I'm using alcohol inks, 3 different colors of blue alcohol ink. And first I need to spray down the surface of the clay with some rubbing alcohol to take the alcohol inks. And then I'm just going to randomly drop the paint all over the clay. And I'm going to just keep doing it until I get the effect that I want. Once I get the paint on the clay, I just take a straw and blow the paint around till I get the desired effect. And I'm kind of looking for like a tie-dye or I wouldn't know how to explain it, a look to it. And here you can see me blowing through the straw, and it did take quite a bit of blowing to get it to move where I wanted to, and it didn't seem to want to cooperate with me. I think I almost passed out blowing this paint so much. So I did both sides with the alcohol ink. I had to wait in between for one side to dry, and I did the other side. So now it's time to do the silk screening, and I'm going to use a gold paint on top of the blue for the silk screening. So paint is dry and all cut out, ready to go to bake. So before I throw that in the oven and bake, I'm just going to use these scraps and make my earrings called Ride the Big Blue Wave. And those earrings were made from the scraps of the earrings you just saw me make. And these turned out very, very cool also. Reworking the clay gave it a whole different look, and I was very, very pleased with the results. And as soon as I can get this rolled out and cut out, I will put them all in my air fryer to bake. And I use the air fryer because it just works so much better than using an oven or a toaster oven or a convection oven. And I have one dedicated just to my polymer clay because you really don't want to be using putting food in an oven or an air fryer after you've been using polymer clay in it. It does give off an odor, so I'm sure that that would not be good for using for food afterwards. So I'm just going to get these cut out, and I'm going to get everything put on the ceramic tiles that I use to bake my clay on, and they should be done in just under an hour. So baking is all done, and now comes the fun part. And this is a very time-consuming thing besides putting the resin on. But this has to be done before the resin, and I'm just sanding off the edges because the cutters that we use sometimes for polymer clay just does not give a nice clean edge. So I'm just giving it a nice clean edge with my Dremel here, and it is a very dusty mess. I usually wear a mask when I'm doing this, and if you watch my left hand that's holding the pieces, pretty soon my whole hand turns blue just from all of the dust. time, I can go ahead and start doing the resin. And I always start with the edges of the piece because you want to do all sides of the clay piece. This is the most time-consuming part here, doing the edges. Once the edges are done, I will resin one side and then cure it. And curing, I usually start with the UV lamp for a couple minutes. If it's a sunny day, which I love, I take it outside in the sunlight. And the UV rays from the sun, of course, is so much better. It cures it faster and harder than just strictly using the UV light. And it saves me wear and tear on my UV light, which they don't last forever either. But we can only do one side at a time. So I'm doing the edges on one side here, and then once that side is done, I will go ahead and resin and cure the other side. So once I get the one side of resin cured, I can go ahead and flip them over, and then I need to glue on the stud posts for the earrings. So I'll just take super glue and glue those to the back and make sure that they're completely dry so I can resin that other side. So I'm going to actually resin over the stud posts, which just make them extra secure, because the UV resin is so tough and hard that it's hard for me to even drill through. So it's really going to give that extra strength to those stud posts on those earrings. stud posts are dry, and now it's time to give another coat of resin on that side and get those cured. And while that's the resin is curing under the lamp, I'm going to go ahead and make some jump rings to connect the two pieces of the earrings together. So I'm just taking some 18 gauge gold-plated tarnish resistant wire and wrapping it around my little mandrel a few times, and then I'm going to take my mallet and whack it a few times just to kind of harden the wire before cutting it and using it. And then I'm going to take my flush cutters and just cut the pieces apart, the little loops, and then trim them so that they're ready to use for my jump rings to connect my earrings. So now I just need to trim my jump rings because my flush cutter does not really cut them flush. When you cut through the wire, there's always one end that is pointier than the other and it's sharp. So we need to get that off. So I'm just taking the very, very tips off of that jump ring. Everything is cured, my posts are on the backs. Now it's time to get the holes drilled in both pieces so I can connect them with those jump rings and they will dangle. So I use an electric drill first of all to get the hole drilled, and then I make it bigger with the, it's called the pin driver, just because that little drill does not make them big enough holes on there. So that's what I am doing here. left is to attach the two pieces together with the jump ring, and they will be ready to go. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you at my next live sale. Bye-bye.